My name is Mike Sharples. I'm Emeritus Professor of Education Technology at the Open University in the UK. Welcome to my exp. And there's insight coming from neuroscience about the way in which we lay down memories, long-term memories, which shows that it's better to have a session of around 20 minutes and then take a break, allow that knowledge to be able to be developed, to connect with previous knowledge, and then have another 20-minute session and to repeat that in order to be able to learn a topic, and then to redo that the next day. And that sort of spaced learning is far more effective than having one long session of teaching. So that's one example of the way in which an insight from neuroscience complements what we've known for a long time about human memory. Everybody learns in a different way, so we all have our own preferred approaches to learning. But what we can do is find the most successful, the optimum way of learning for ourselves. There are some things that we do know are effective. For instance, setting a goal at the start of your learning so that you're working towards that goal. Understanding how you're progressing towards that learning goal. Being tested along the way so that your understanding can be reflected back to you. You can understand how you're doing and know what you need to know further. Having guidance as to what you do know, but also what you need to know. And that's where the role of a teacher comes in. I think recently there's been more of an emphasis on self-directed learning, learners managing their own learning processes, going online, looking up facts on the internet, engaging in conversations. And it's kind of suggesting that there's no need for a teacher. Well, that's wrong. There's a really important role for a teacher, but that role is not just to deliver content. It's to support what's called scaffolding. It's to scaffold a person's understanding. And you do that by setting goals, by supporting the learner's progress, by testing them at the right point, and by helping them to know what they need to do next and where they need to go in order to be able to find new knowledge. There's a current vogue, a current interest in schools becoming more supportive environments where the teachers facilitate learning rather than teach content. That can work, but only if it's done in a very careful and well-managed way. I think the way forwards is to have some sort of combination. So there is and always will be a need for students, for young learners and adult learners to gain content knowledge. Some of that can be online, but that online content can be suspect. Some of it can be fake. It needs to be filtered. It needs to be assessed. So a teacher has a role in that. Some of that content can be carefully constructed by the school manager, and put online so that the students can work from home. And increasingly, I think, students of all ages are going to be accessing this content at home. And so we get to what's called flipped learning, which is where the students use online technology to be able to access the core content, and then in a formal setting of a classroom or a seminar room, they can then discuss, analyze, understand that content in more detail. And for school management, setting up that kind of flipped learning requires a lot of effort, a lot of work. Firstly, to develop the technology so that the core content, whether it's a lecture, a classroom session, can be delivered online, but also to support students in coming back into the classroom and doing that active learning. So schools have that important childcare role. They have a role of preparing young people for their working life, for their careers, but also for encouraging and enhancing creativity, for social engagement, building confidence and resilience. And now more than ever, young people need to build resilience, being able to cope with whatever life throws at them. And so I think school is moving towards understanding these new roles. How do you build resilience amongst young people? And you can do that by helping young people to be more confident in their learning, to be able to learn in a variety of different ways, learning in groups, learning through exploration, learning through performing scientific experiments, being able to access and assess data, being able to manage their own learning and know when they're succeeding, being able to test themselves and test others, to do something called teach back, which is where one learner teaches to another, the other learner teaches back what they've just learned. So giving the students more confidence to learn in different ways is going to help them to be more resilient.